Hello again, everybody. It is Celeste Sunday once more, or well, it is at the time recording this. And we have episode 19 of The Witcher Mercury season 2, sort of. I don't know, it's sort of season 1, but it's still season 2. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So going into this episode, I was hoping for basically Soletta's quote unquote like character rising moment where after episode 18, which kind of like the more it sunk in, the more I was like, man, I really hope Soletta's okay, dude, because I swear, I knew things were gonna go wrong this episode, but I knew it was gonna be like the war kind, and not like, my main hope was that Soletta doesn't get any worse, and that was fulfilled, and I feel better after this episode mentally than I did the last one, and that's mainly because Soletta, but, you know, we'll get to there when we get to there. But to give my general initial impressions of the episode, I think this was both a good fresh change of pace and also continuing the tragedy that is happening at the same time. So I think it is probably like an S tier episode for me, because for like an S plus I got episode 14, episode 12, episode 17, like those are like the S plus episodes. But you know, I said again by last week's video that by this point I am so invested that I just love each episode just because it's part of the just because I love The Witcher Mercury as a series by this point. And we got a lot of really good moments throughout this episode, and I feel there's a better sense of relief compared to last time, which is ironic considering the material that happens in the episode. But to start off, the big thing about this episode is Miorene's negotiations with Earth, because they said up last episode that she was going to try to make peace with them, and it did not go well at all. But it was surprisingly not her fault, because truth be spoken, she actually did a pretty good job just convincing them, despite her quote unquote overconfidence. Like, it seems like going into it she thought she had a very basic viewpoint of it, of just just go in there, just make a deal, just be done with it, it's easy to reason with. She's has a hard time grasping the weight of everything that's going on, specifically the tragedies that have occurred. It's very hard to talk your way out of that given her position. She's not actually responsible in terms of her own actions, but she carries the name of her family and the company, so as such she holds some responsibility for what happens. Basically, she has that burden put on her, the burden of sins that Prosper was going on about in episode 16. It's very captivating when you go back to the beginning of this series, where Miorine really all her goal was just to go to Earth, and now that she finally gets to do it, she realizes that there is so much more going on than her. And by this point, she's taking up so much more responsibility, like I said before. And Goel as well here. These two characters have come such a long way and have matured so much. Kind of out of obligation, these are two 17-year-olds filling the roles of their parents, who are much older than them, and so these kids, there's a through line of passing down responsibilities and such that these two share. So I think in that way I really like the interactions between Goel and Miorine. I think that relationship there is pretty interesting, because it is purely right now they're together out of necessity. And you know, back then, Goel was just filling out his role as be the holder, get the bride, basically take over the company, stuff like that. And to see how far he's gone to where he recognizes a kid from episode 15 and just immediately just drops everything to focus on that kid is really interesting, and I like where that leads as well. To quickly intersect, I'll just get out of the way the most bizarre moments in this episode, and that's the moment with Martin and Cecilia, because it is so bizarre. You have him basically getting blackmailed by her, because I guess she stalks the counseling room in Astasia, but she also ends up giving him good advice that pushes him forward to come clean with his with the Earth House, which ends up giving them a better relationship. That's the most confusing thing. She's still technically fulfilling the counseling role, just doing it in a very morally questionable way. And also Roji's there, so it's good for that guy, I guess. Throughout the episode, we're also getting pieces of info with that. I forgot the name of those two those that woman is, but like I'll show a screenshot of like also that like that scene where she's trying to like get information out of her. But it seems like from what I remember, that's tying into like the prologue, I believe, and gets deeper into the reasons behind Prospera's revenge. And like, man, she is just after like everybody who wronged her. Like, God, she is sending like the biggest message ever by this revenge. But like, honestly, this is like one of the most captivating like revenge schemes I've seen in a while, because man, she is just going all out with it, and it is so like entertaining to watch. Like, man, she is such a scheming devil, but that's why I love Prospera so much. Like, she is such a good antagonist, because it is all just about how she manipulates people in like the situation at hand, how she takes advantage of that, and like, it's all such good stuff, man. And speaking of good stuff, I was so surprised that my favorite scene in the whole episode, at least like one of my favorites, it's like there are some scenes that come close, is the moments between once again back in the room with the good three, Alon 5, Nika, and Noria, because the moment that happens here is, wow, it feels like a payoff for every other scene we've seen them in this room, like these past few episodes, where Noria basically reaches a breaking point and just like lets it all out. And man, there is something very satisfying about it. Like, not in a way of just like, yeah, take that, Noria, but as in like a, man, she's finally just like letting these emotions out after so long, because initially she didn't seem to have much of a reaction. She had a very like quote unquote tame reaction to Sophie dying, and she's let it out somewhat in the past, like in episode 15, where she was like attacking Nika and just her aggression towards others. But I really like how in this she finally like lets it all out, and even Ilan is surprised at this, just like at this, like he thought he was just gonna mess around again, like get her to open up in his very annoying way, because before he's just been about like trying to get her to open up in a like just by being kind of like a dick, sort of like, you know, he acknowledges, he irritates her with the fact that they're so similar, that they both have like this desire to live, but once she actually opens up, it catches him off guard too, and that's just a really good character moment for both of them, to where at first like he looks at the notebook just for amusement. You could tell that's what it is at first, but then he actually starts like paying attention to the art, seeing how it reflects her own character, because like by this point it has just basically become vent art, where she's just scribbling, she's venting out all her emotions into these sketches. But then he flips back and sees how like much more like peaceful these drawings were, and just you could tell it actually does have an effect on him, and just he acknowledges like how like he finally gets it out of her that like they are very similar. And I love that line saying that like Nika would never actually understand what just happened, but what just happened right there, but like he knows full well, because it's like, and like, oh, it's making me really like these characters both a lot more, and it's gonna make it so sad when Elan is the one who dies, because I am calling it right now. I don't think Elan 5 is gonna survive this story. That's just, call it a prediction on my end, but like I feel like these two are just gonna grow closer as the episodes go on, and then I feel like this guy's gonna die. That's just my own call. But man, I did not expect this ship to go as far as it did. Like, it's still like here and there, like without canon, like it is. But like, I still remember all the way back in episode like 14 was when this ship started beginning for people, when they started like this idea of, hey, they have a really good back and forth of like hating each other. What if we have something here? And then we start seeing, oh god, there actually is something here. And it's actually very I have investment in it, despite how like the relationship is just, it's entertaining because they're just two people who just don't like each other, but have similarities, but those similarities are why they don't like each other. And it's like, saying that out loud, it's like, oh god, it's Love is War all over again for me, isn't it? You all don't need to get that, but like for those who do, like, oh man, oh my god. All right. No, enough talking about that. The thing I really want to get to now is Soletta, because it's like we finally get her actually being like down in the dumps, kind of depressed after episode 17 and now 18, where at first she was coping, she was going through it, she was trying to put on a face, but it finally all just lets out, and she's kind of a mess. And man, I really love how Earth House ends up supporting her, because I am so glad even throughout like season 2, I thought they would become less relevant. Like that was kind of my fear, but I'm so glad these characters still matter to the story and Soletta. Like they're such a good like little family that still care about and support her and go out of the way to make sure like she's okay. And I love how we have her Soletta with her hair down like and like unzipped jacket. Like I love that look for her, because like man, like she's that, and just her going into the fridge just to eat a bunch of canned ham. It's like, man, that is a mood. Like I think by this point we've all picked up that like something that Soletta does is like stress eats. Like that's her way of coping. She just tries eating, and man, that's so relatable. And that little moment where she realizes someone's watching her in the low voice she made, that was just great. And then after that really nice moment with Soletta and Earth House, this is where things start going bad. First off, Guel, it finally clicks for him after talking with that kid that Shadiq has been responsible for a lot of things throughout the series by this point, and such as the plant incident and the open campus. And it was here that I realized that, oh, okay, Shadiq and Guel are the ones going to be going against each other. Like, I think Guel is going to have some sort of battle with Shadiq, and it's gonna be very interesting. Like, I think that is going to be Guel's like end game threat, that he conquers himself. That's just how I see it, really, because man, Shadiq, he is just a jerk at this point, dude. Like, the way he says Guel defiled Murine, like the way he like objectively out of everyone, it still feels like he sees her like a prize to win in a way. And like, man, it's gonna be so satisfying when this guy gets taken down, because I'm waiting for it, really. And then for when the actual thing that goes wrong, Prospera pulls a little war crimes and leads to like a bunch of war and destruction in the city, and Murine just feels like it's all her fault. And the funny thing about this whole thing is that technically Prospera did not kill anyone herself. All she did was blow up like the supply of Gundams, and then like made another tank like attack a mobile suit, and then war just erupted. So technically she doesn't have any actual blood on her hands, but she still caused people to die, which is exactly what happened with Soletta at the end of episode 12. So like, she is so good about getting like bloodshed to happen, but she never actually does anything herself. And I love that kind of villain, where it's like, I technically didn't do anything, but we know dang well this is all their fault. And man, Prospera again, just like a great villain. I can't wait to see where it goes for her. I think I've seen like some discussion about like believing Murine is being like way too naive or dumb and stuff like that. And I'm like, to get my own thoughts of that, it's like, I'm sorry, but like Murine, like she's just giving it all she's got, really. Like her hands are like so tied, honestly. Like she's like a 16 to 17-year-old that has basically been put into a position like she has no hopes of comprehending, and she like she just kind of has to hope that like if she follows along Prospera enough, she won't pull anything bad. Like there's really like, what else can she really do by this point? Like she just kind of had to, like, her idea was just, if I take over Quiet Zero and like do what she says and become president, then maybe Soletta will be okay. Maybe things will turn out alright if things go how she wants. But then as she realizes here, it's like she gets to see the horrors of like war and like the true like the battle between like space and Earth, and it's like, man, that is, oh, she feels fully responsible for that, despite it her not being her fault. And it's like, I don't know, I do not see any way of like, my brain does not at all think that like, oh, she's being too naive or she's like being dumb or anything. To me, like, she is doing her goddamn best with what she's got. And man, I really hope Soletta could do something about all this. And that last aspect of Soletta is why I'm not left as like desperate for the next episode as I was last time, because I really like the realization Soletta has here. I brought up the whole thing with Marta and Cecilia earlier. I really like how that comes to how like Martin like talks and makes like resolves his issue with Earth House, and how like they understand like why he did what he did. But like I also like Toby and like, hey, just for that, just you should just clean up the farm yourself, you know. It's like as like some sort of quote unquote punishment to help ease his mind as well. It's just like, hey, you know, we acknowledge you made a mistake, but also we're all in this together, really. And I like how Choo Choo has a bit of like a moment of like feeling betrayed by Nika for her not knowing about anything and her keeping it a secret, because like it was overall a messy situation. But I know like at this point Choo Choo is not really one to jump the gun anymore. Like she still has her attitude, you know, she still has her energy, but she's not gonna make as many brash decisions or let her anger speak as much. The best part about this whole moment though is that Suletta ends up taking something away from this whole idea of like not the best way of doing something, but having basically they're feeling like there's no other choice to protect someone. And I really like how that ends up playing into like the name of the episode, because I thought not the best way would tie into like Murine trying to make peace with Earth, but that surprisingly goes well in her end. It's everything else that messes up and ruins everything. It's a very, the way they the idea of like doing things not the best way, I like how like optimistic and more hopeful they treat that message in this episode. Like the way it comes around as like a how it ties back into the previous episodes where it was messed up how things turned out for Suletta, but also like she understands that like it feels the people around her felt like they didn't know what to do, how to protect her essentially. Like Ariel, they could have been nicer about it, you know, it was definitely very damaging, but in the end they did protect her from things that she had no idea that were going to happen, and things that like she didn't realize, because if it wasn't for Ariel, she could have been down there in the war killing people herself for all we know, and that would have been extremely ugly to see. Like I think everyone was expecting Suletta to commit like war crimes, like that was kind of the joke, but we were all kind of like half expecting it. I like how they actually aren't, like they actually like the characters in this series went out of their way to make sure that she wouldn't have to do that herself. But now that like she's more aware, she's figured things out herself about the situation, she's going to make something of it. She's going to actually do something. Like the whole move forward gain 2 thing is going to have a new meaning to her. Like this is that realization moment for her, to where she is going to now become a more proactive character, and I am so excited to see that happen, man. Like, despite how messed up that whole ending bit is, where, like, you know, Murine just left to look at the fire, all the ruins, she's basically left alone because Guo went back to the school. I'm feeling pretty hopeful right now. Like, I'm sure things are going to turn out well. Like, I know everyone's expecting this to end in tragedy, but, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm really realizing that I think this is gonna be like a hopeful story in the end. Like there is tragedy, like there is bloodshed. It's still war is still a big theme of this story, but I have faith, you know. Like, and that's I don't need my stories to end very tragic. I could be shooting myself in the foot very easily, but like for me, I don't need my stories to end in big tragedies for the sake of tragedy. Like just going off stuff like the ED, like the lyrics for the opening, the English opening for the first OP. Like, I think things are going to turn out fine, like, and I just can't wait to see Suletta reunite with Murine, because I just know that it's going to be, it's going to hit me in the heart so bad when it happens, and we'll see when that happens, man. But yeah, I think I've said everything I want to about this episode. I'm feeling pretty confident that they're going to be able to conclude this story in the next 5 episodes. Like, again, Witcher Mercury is so good at using its time very effectively that I think by now I just have trust that it's going to be a satisfying season, and it just is going to be a satisfying show overall. And I know Gundam, like, this series has been very profitable for them. I don't know how they're going to capitalize on this. I hope it doesn't mean that they're going to, like, extend this story. Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but, like, I can imagine we're getting more seasons that are, like, its own story, actually. But I don't know. I don't know the biggest history with Gundam. I don't know how many times that happens. We may get stuff in this universe. That's my only guess. Like, but I'm out of my element. I'm way past my element when talking about this kind of stuff, because you know I'm a newbie Gundam person, really. But yeah, I think we got a really good, just like full season of TV on our hands here. And again, I hope I'm not wrong. And with that said, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this discussion. Feel free to leave your own thoughts in the comments below. I really love getting discussions going down there. And I hope you all have a good day.